But I want to say a few, words of thanks first, but also a little bit of context about our film and this project. So obviously, thank you to Indiana Humanities for not only sponsoring today's event so that it's free for us, but the whole film making and debuting process as well. Coming out of the pandemic, it was really amazing to have gigs booked for us that we didn't have to book ourselves and promote ourselves. It was amazing to come together as a statewide community and get down into some of the smaller communities in central and southern Indiana after, kind of being stuck in our own world for so long. So that was truly an amazing thing. I want to say thank you. I've noticed some veterans hats. I want to thank the veterans here. I want to thank first responders, second responders. I heard some farmers in there. I want to thank farmers as well, educators. Thank you all for what you do to keep our communities going, because that's what all of this ties into. So thank you all for being here on a day where the Bears are playing the Packers. We're not going to talk about what the score is. I didn't even check, so I don't know. But seriously, thank you. I as an artist who does public work, I was in Chicago for a long time before moving back to Northwest Indiana, and I forgot football Sundays. Not much happens. I put a video out on YouTube. Nobody watches it on football Sundays, but they'll watch it on Mondays. So this is a great turnout. Again, I'm really grateful for you all being here. Really enjoy getting around and talking about these things. This film that we made almost 2 years ago and just sort of had to pause it for a little while till we got to go out and show it and connect with the communities. My name is Sam Love. As mentioned, she mentioned, I wrote it, but she mentioned social civic practice artist, which simply means I can't draw to save my life. But what I can do is find money for projects. I can write and edit. I can make images. I can inspire other young creative people like Raymar, who couldn't be here today. He's so ecstatic that something he's made is generating discussion and bringing people out like that. Well, a little bit about the waterway first. We'll start with that. You notice in the film there was a tendency to talk about specific branches of this Calumet system, but there's also a tendency to talk about it as a singular thing, the Cal. You might hear somebody in the same sentence talk about the Grand Cal and then call it the Cal for the rest of that sentence. Over the recent holiday, Fridays, they have this thing called Opt-Out Fridays, where instead of going shopping, you go outdoors. Been doing this for decades, and it's really caught on over the past years to where, this past Black Friday, I opened up social media and half of my friends are outdoors hiking, or we weren't kayaking or boating on that particular day, but you're getting outdoors. And what I noticed when my friends would take pictures and write it up and post it on social media, the Cal River, even though they were at the East Branch of the Little Cal, or the Grand Cal by the Snyder, Shirley Hines property, or this or that. In the film, we actually only filmed in Gary and East Chicago. There's a little bit in Hammond at that Indiana Welcome Center, but the majority of it is right in the middle of this very long river that starts out near Red Mill County Park in LaPorte County, just outside Michigan City, flows all the way through Porter County, all the way through Lake County, and then into Cook County up to Blue Island, which used to be an island many thousands of years ago. Makes a hairpin turn, comes back, re-enters Indiana at a point we call it the Grand Calumet River, and then into the Marquette Park Lagoons, which we saw Jeffrey and McKenya. McKenya used to be a Gary Parks Department director, so she knows her stuff. The water actually used to enter Lake Michigan at that point, but over the years, so much sand and sediment had built up that it actually created the lagoon. Human activity in Illinois, the early explorers and the Native Americans, it's believed, basically dragged their canoes between the river that I just described, the hairpin turn back Indiana, and the original Calumet River, which used to connect Lake Michigan and Lake Calumet. Today, if you go down by the Hegwish Marsh in Chicago, you see all those landfills. That's artificial. It's hard to believe that started with people just dragging canoes back and forth to that waterway. Those were the highways. And we had plenty of those highways back then, and we built our highways today, literally, almost in parts literally over the water. Just an aside, I took my kayak, I think it was 2 years ago now. I took it from Deep River in Lake Station to the confluence with the Little Calumet River. Literally, the Borman Expressway is right there. You could touch it. Nobody knows, those thousands of cars every day zooming by don't know there's a major confluence, which for the native people and the early settlers here was a critical highway juncture. We don't even know. Strangest thing, I'm under the Borman paddling. I'm scared to death, I got to be honest. And I was like, it starts to smell like the county fair. And I'm expecting chemicals. And it smells like horse dung. I come out onto the highway. There's the confluence. Literally, there's a horse up on the land staring at it. There's a horse farm down there. I did not proceed too much farther in those brown waters. I'll just put it that way. Yeah, is it a system? Is it a singular thing? Was it ever a singular thing? We kind of, as an art film, let that linger. What we wanted to do in this is capture, because this is a humanities film. This is Indiana Humanities. I'm being a stickler. I was a teacher of humanities at a college in Chicago for many years, a lifetime ago, it feels like. Do I look like somebody who could have taught at a college for 15 years and then spent the past 10 years doing something totally different? And we wanted to keep that somewhat open because it's a humanities film. We want to let people who are doing the work around the water, and by no means did we get everybody, even within Gary and East Chicago, who are doing things. I can't use the excuse of not having time because we had an extra year because of the COVID pause, I suppose, to go out and talk to people. But we had a limit of 15 minutes for this film, which was 16, actually. We begged for that extra minute. But we wanted the people who were doing the work to speak to that rather than us as the filmmakers coming up on high saying, we know everything about the waters. We're the experts. You listen to what we say. Very different type of film we wanted to make, because being that this was a statewide project and the first audiences would not necessarily be Northwest Indiana people, we wanted to show people, first of all. We wanted to be the first people to show others from the rest of the state, and we wanted to make sure it was us, not specifically me and Raymar, but Northwest Indiana people who live in this watershed. We wanted to make sure we were the ones talking about our history, our ecology, our culture, rather than somebody coming in from the outside and just, oh, it smells and it's dirty and it's polluted. And how could anybody? There's that point in the film where Jeffrey talks about the fish and the different flows. And yeah, some might be toxins, but others are clean. That shocked people. People were a bit uncomfortable. The parts about 4,000 E. coli's in the water, which was in Black Oak, which is a neighborhood on the far west side of Gary where they have lots of septic systems. So that probably explains why that's in there. Yeah, we were walking through the water at that point. It was so shallow, and now that I know what I was walking in. But, it's reality. So we wanted to make sure that we could balance the issues that we have up in our region, as well as the beauties of it and what people up there love about. And I say up there, I make the distinction because coming down here from Gary today, I crossed the Laurentine Divide, which is the watershed divide between what goes into the Calumet system and what goes into the Kankakee system. If you don't know where that's at, it's basically Fancher Lake. It's not a straight line because there are no straight lines in nature. But if you live north of Fancher, you're in the Calumet, and generally if you live south, you're in the Kankakee. So in my kind of watershed thinking, I'm in a different world right now. But of course, this is Lake County, Indiana, and I've been coming to Cedar Lake all of my life. A little different looking now than what I remember when I was a kid, a little bit more development. There's, to be honest, I think there is why I jumped at coming down here, especially to Cedar Lake, because people make fun of our waters out of Gary. They made fun of Cedar Lake waters. Don't go in there. You're going to grow a third arm, get a rash. And I know a lot of work's been done here to address that. And I think you all probably have more developmental pressures than we do up in the parts of Gary we filmed, because ain't nobody going to be developing anything in those parts you saw in our film. That's all swamp and marsh, basically. And parts of the Indiana Harbor Shipping Canal, which I wish we would have kept the part where Thomas Frank talks about how the residents of the Calumet public housing complex, that was where they swam. That is one of the most impaired bodies of water. That's where Black people in East Chicago were allowed to swim. They could not go to Georgie Beach, surely could not go to the dunes. I'm talking about 40s, 50s, even into the 60s. And that Calumet neighborhood no longer exists. That's where the lead crisis happened. So there is just layers upon layers of oppressions, but then there are these like layers upon layers of people. This is the wonderful thing about humanities. People will do what they got to do. And if we're stir crazy, we want to get out on the kayaks and we want to get other people out, they're going to find a way to do it. So we didn't want in our film to be too specific. Oh, the Marquette Park Lagoon, well, that's all right. But this little section of the West Branch of the Little, we did want to look at it as a singular thing, even though human activity over the years, and not just human industrial activity, literally Native Americans dragging canoes back and forth. It's had a massive change on the flow of our waterways. I actually think it's more dramatic than reversing the flow of the Chicago River, because that's just one river they sent. We've sent ours in 5 different directions, but it's not as sexy as, I guess, changing the flow of a river and sending it all one way. But it very much is connected, all in there. So, yeah, that's trying to squeeze all that into 15 minutes was quite a chore. But yeah, you know, we were grateful for the opportunity. We were grateful to kind of, as Northwest Indiana people, elbow our way into something statewide. Because I feel like they tend to ignore us a little bit. Thank you. I'm seeing lots of agreement, so thank you for that. It's changing a little bit, but there's so much more to go. And it's important because this, and then she read about some of the work I've done with the Indiana Arts Commission. That's taxpayer money, your money, my money, our money, and that's what supports what I do primarily. So thank you. Yeah, I'm very serious about thank you all for coming out here, especially on a day like this, like maybe the last day Aaron Rodgers plays against the Bears. Nephew somehow became a Packers fan. I don't know how this happened, but you know, to come out here and discuss these issues, this is a great turnout for that. So thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions about our film or the Calumet? If you ask